Number 5, fifth commandment. Determine available fire ground time. And this is going to apply from now on, I think, equally to trucks and engines. And I want to talk a little bit about conventional lightweight construction and the fire ground clock. If you can see the right picture, it's one of the more popular pictures that was ever taken in my department. That is an unreinforced masonry building. We'll talk about that after a little bit. Collapsing, and 4 firefighters about a half a second away from being buried. Unreinforced masonry construction has no rebar, has no cement, it's just lime and sand. And you guys have got a lot of them. And a lot of people watching this have a lot of them also. Let me talk about 2 different clocks. I think when I say, what does the fire ground clock mean to you? People will say, okay, John, well, there's the time the fire's been burning, yeah, okay. Then somebody sees it, yes. Somebody turns it in, yes. Then the dispatcher dispatches you, yes. And then you come down the street, you pull up in front of the building, and you stop. Fire ground clock number 1. Then there's fire ground clock number 2. Fires are dynamic, they're not static. When you pull up in front and stop in front of the building, the fire doesn't go, oh, John's here. Let's hang out for a little bit. No, it keeps on burning. And here's my point. Fire ground clock number 2. How long is it going to take you to get off your rig, get your stuff on, get up to the building, which might entail you going to the 2nd or the 3rd floor. It might not be just a single-story, single-family dwelling. And then when you pull the bail and the nozzle back to flow the first drop of water, you still haven't put the fire out yet. Let me give you a classic example. You pull up in front of a single-story, single-family dwelling. Stop, set the brakes off. The fire is right inside the building. How long is it going to take you to get off the rig, get your stuff, get your pre-connect, stretch it up, force the front door, step inside, pull the bail back? What's the best time you're going to give me on that one? 3 minutes? You spotted the fire 3 minutes, and you still haven't put it out yet. Now I start to pull the ceiling, put the fire out in the attic, or put the wherever, probably another couple of minutes. We're talking somewhere between 4, 5, maybe 6 minutes to put the fire out. And in today's construction, if you're going to tell me that you're going to pull up to a fire in a residential occupancy with fire in the attic, and you're going to spot it 3 minutes before you put it out, basically what are you telling me? Because what's the national average of collapse of lightweight construction when it's exposed to fire? 5 to 7 minutes. So when you look at the fire ground clock number 2, from the perspective of how long is it going to take you to put the fire out, sometimes it dramatically changes things. If you're going to tell me it's going to take you, because of forcible entry, maybe going up a couple stairways, it's going to take you 6, 7, 8 minutes to put the fire out, in some cases, what are you saying? You're probably not going to do it safely. So there's 2 fire ground clocks. 2 fire ground clocks. This is a classic video. This is a carport fire, and they had to park down the street, and they had to stretch everything about a half a block up the street. And they had to park down the street because of traffic and people and what have you. And you would think, well, you know, if a rig could pull right up there in the driveway and just use maybe a deck gun, portable monitor, whatever, and knock it down fairly quickly, yeah, you could do that, but they couldn't do that. They're going to have to stretch everything down the street. And you'll also notice that there's a little exposure problem on the left. That was a 2-story apartment house. And I'll give you a heads up, we lost that one too. So we got a carport fire, and a carport fire is not that big a deal. So here they come, they're coming down the street, here he comes, he's got, and by the way, is this an 1 3/4 fire? Los Angeles has about 3,800 people. Do they have enough people to stretch a 2.5 in a fire ground? No, they stretch an 1 3/4. Remember I said we were creatures of habit. So there's the photographer. Where does he have that guy stand to get a real good picture, by the way? Under the power lines. Yeah. Hey, dude, would you stand right there just for a minute? So you will notice that the exposure on the left is starting to burn a little bit quicker. And right about this time, the fire has gone up the side, hit the eave, and it's in the attic of the apartment house next door. So all the firefighters stand there, you're thinking, man, John, it takes a long time to get water to the hose line. Well, you'd have to talk to the engineer down the street about that. And they're also stretching another 1.75 inches. So, which you'll see here in just a minute. Would you say we're starting to lose this? Mm-hmm. How long do you think that video was? 3 minutes? What do you think? 3 minutes? I've heard 4 and 5 minutes. That video is 2 minutes flat. Depends when you cut it off. The point is, the fire had the capability to do what? And 2 minutes on the fire ground is what? It's a heartbeat. The fire had the capability to do what within 2 minutes? Go from the carport to the wall of a 2-story apartment, up the side, into the attic, and when they finally get the carport knocked down, there's this gal outside running, screaming and yelling, "Oh, the world's going to burn down." What do you think she's yelling next? "Whoa, look at the roof of the building next door. Mittendorf's here, we're going to lose the city," you know, so it's like So 2 minutes is not long, but from a fire's perspective, oh yeah, we got some time. I've used this baseline on the fire ground for quite a while, and it works pretty good. If fire is exposing lightweight structural members, to me that's 2x4 or less. Conventional is 2x6 or more. If fire is exposing lightweight structural members for more than 5 minutes, I'd rethink what you're about ready to do, particularly if it's overhead. Conversely, if fire is exposing conventional members for much more than 15 or 20 minutes, I'd reevaluate what you're about ready to do. It depends. Now, if you've never seen this video is a classic. And I want you to watch 2 things. I want you to watch how long it takes this to collapse, and I want you to watch how it collapses. This is conventional construction. This is 2x6. And you can see they've put some concrete blocks on the roof to give it some dead load. And you would think, you know, there's not that much of a difference between 16 penny nails and 8 penny nails and maybe gang nail plates that go in 3/8 of an inch. Oh, really? Would you say this is a pretty good fire? In fact, what's fascinating about this video is this fire will almost go out before this roof collapses. So now we're probably up to around 17, 18 minutes. This is just 2x6, conventional construction. There's 10 minutes, and here's 17 minutes. How's the fire they initially set doing? And there's 21 minutes. Now watch how this roof collapses and how it collapses. Right there. Very slowly. Did you notice the ceiling joist stayed intact? It lasted 23 minutes. Now let's do the same roof made out of 2x4 with gang nail plates. Same roof, same fire, different method of construction. How long do you think this one's going to last? I want you to watch 2 things. The amount of time it takes to let go and the way it collapses. And there we go. See the difference? And just in case you didn't see it the first time, there, I'll give it to you one more time. You know, that's just a drill. Yeah, it's just a drill, but I think it's very, very accurate. Back around 1984, we did a similar drill to that, LA City, which was published back then, which was Western or American Fire Journal. And I went to the truss manufacturer, and we had, at that time, which was all the trusses that were available, which really haven't changed a whole lot in the preceding years. We did not have a metal truss, was the only one we did not have. And the same thing as this college, this is a college back in New York, that we put these things up, we put a fire underneath. We had wooden I-beam, we had 2x4 gang nail plates, we had the top and bottom cord of wood with the steel tubes with the pin through it. You guys have all seen that stuff. We had no truss that lasted more than 3.5 minutes. And the biggest one that we had, which was a gang nail plate floor truss, it was heavy, it was big and it was heavy. We had to use a forklift to lift it into place. It lasted 1 minute and 20 seconds. The point is that when you go in today's modern structure, does it make or should it make a difference to you whether the fire is underneath you in a basement? Because in a lot of houses today, if the fire is underneath you in a basement, there's a good chance it's burning what type of construction? TGI joists. And the stem in a TGI joist is how thick? 3/8 OS and B, that's basically chipwood and glue. I live in Southern Oregon. And Oregon and Washington, you know, the lumber capital of the Pacific Northwest, if you was to come out to where I live, I can take you down Highway 62, which is a major highway, through Medford in Oregon, and show you lot after lot after lot of logging trucks that have parked and have been parked there for the past 15 years. You do not see logging trucks going down the road much anymore. And the ones that you see will now have how many trees? In fact, if you watch Extreme Loggers on the History Channel, how many trees do they have in the back of those logging trucks? 30, 40, 50? And the trees are how big around? About like that. If you look at pictures of old logging operations in this country, Pacific Northwest, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s maybe, how many trees do they have in the back of a logging truck? 3, 4, how big around with the trees? What's the difference? The difference is the new trees are plantation grown, they have a lot of pitch, how do they burn? Very, very fast, and they also do not have any density to them compared to the old woods that would have the hardwood. Your new trees really don't have any hardwood to them. So basically we've got two things working against us today on the modern fireground. The type of lumber they're using, and when you put it in a lightweight configuration, and then on top of that, you glue it together. I've always looked at a structure from the perspective of 4 primary extension avenues. Where is the fire? Where is it going? You guys have a lot of basements, and a lot of people watch this program have a lot of basements. The West Coast, not so many basements. But a basement fire is probably one of the worst fires we can have. Why? It's underneath you. When you walk in the building, what are you standing on? The roof of the fire is exactly right. Also, what's the extension route? The extension route is up to the building, and when you open the door to the cellar or the basement to take your line down, what did you just give the fire? Oxygen. And if you're going to take a line down, you'll never be able to close the door because your line is there, and now the fire is going to make a run for where? Your egress and exit point. So basement fires can be very, very difficult, as you know. I think probably one of the simplest fires that we go to is a single-story, single-family, no basement. Piece of cake. Access is easy, ventilation is easy. The only problem we really have to worry about is the fire above you or not. Is it in the structural members? You know, if you're talking about a fire in a building that you're thinking about the building might collapse or the walls might collapse, I doubt if you're going to be inside with a hose line. Agreed? I mean, we're talking about a lot of fire in that case. In that case. Thirdly, we have a multi-story building. Well, if the fire is on the first floor, that's fairly easy. Usually it's easy access, easy ventilation. Searches are fairly, I think, somewhat simplified because I don't have to be crawling stairs to get up the second, third, fourth, fifth floor. Also, the construction between the first and second floor is usually stouter because it has to support what's on top of it as compared to a single-story building. But once I put the fire, this is number 4, on the top floor of a structure, it's not as easy to get to, and basically what separates the fire from getting into the attic of the building. 1/2-inch drywall, which in reality is how thick? 7/16. 7/16. You know, by the time we get down talking about buildings, you're going to be thinking, hey, John, I'm never going to go inside a building again. Yeah, we are. I think the important part is today, I think from an engine company's perspective, when you go inside of a structure, one of your primary considerations is when I step through the front door, where is the fire in relation to you? In a lot of cases, I think your 2 main entry tools are a hose line, and what's your second one? A hook or a pike pole. For what reason? Is there fire in the attic above you? It's that simple. It's that simple. Collapse potential. You know, it's interesting when you look at that perspective, a lot of structures, residential or commercial, have attic vents. And an attic vent is a great indicator of where the fire is or is not. And once I go from, I'll take you back, once I go from this, it appears as though the fire is not in the attic. Great. Structural stability, that's a good. But once I pull up to a structure and I'm looking at that, where else is the fire? In the structural members overhead. In fact, with the drawing that I have on the screen, if I was going to take a hose line inside the structure, what is your first priority? The fire that you see on the grade floor or the fire in the attic above you? I'm going to take the attic above me first. Because if I'm in stretching the line to the fire on the grade floor that you see and the attic collapses, you're in deep trouble. Deep trouble. Here's a classic example. Single family dwelling. And notice I picked one that's got nice large attic vents and they're painted blue. Oh, sweetheart, you know. So let's say that I've got a fire and this house is probably 1,600 square feet, you know, pretty simple. And so let's say that I've got a fire in the front room and the fire has already broken the windows, but let's say that the smoke is kind of a gray, black, in other words, it's just starting to burn. You'd probably pull up in front of the building and you would probably, if you're an engine company, you'd probably force the front door, take a pre-connect in, knock the fire down. If a truck pulled in right behind you, you'd probably give them the job of ventilation and search. Okay, pretty standard. Okay, number two. Now let's assume the smoke gets a lot darker. It's hotter inside. The smoke is now solid black. I think probably pretty much the same thing. You look at the attic vents. You're probably thinking, okay, good there. Maybe you pull the ceiling real quick when you walk inside. The attic is clean. That's good. You knock the fire down. Let's say your truck handles ventilation and search for you. Excellent. Number three, what are you going to do now? Now what I'm looking at, the fire has extended from the house to the attic. I know that. And to me, when I force the front door, I take a pike pole, hook, I pull the ceiling, and it's dark in the attic. Perfect. All I've got is heat and smoke in the attic. In most cases, I can live with that. I can still knock the fire down, do my ventilation, do my search, life is good. But the day that I pull up to a structure, this is number 4, and I see fire from the attic vents, how much time do you think you have left before that collapses, particularly if it's lightweight construction? And you had better on this one. If you're going to go inside, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't, but what I'm saying is, if I'm going to go inside, as I stand at the area of safety, where's that, John? It's right in the front porch. I force the front door. Yeah, I know the black smoke's going to be down to here. I take a pike pole. I pull the ceiling. You're probably going to see red. No big surprise. I knock the fire down. Once you go inside the structure, if you were going to do that, where is the worst place? Now, see, the trusses have been burned. They've been weakened. Where is the worst place for you to be standing inside of your typical single-family dwelling? If you think collapse is a potential. Living room, dining room, the biggest room, right? The weakest part is the middle of the room. Where is the strongest part for you, other than outside the house? Where is the strongest part for you to be standing?
Walls, outside walls.
Outside walls, in a doorway, kitchen, bathroom, or in the hallway that goes back to the master bedrooms. That probably 3.5 feet wide. You have a partition wall on either side. If it were to collapse, it would hit the partition walls and out. One thing that always fascinates me is on overhaul and salvage. There's a lot of books that will tell you that if you're going to take a grouping of furniture for salvage operations and put them together and cover them, where are you supposed to do it in a room? Right in the middle. It's the worst place you can do it. Why? It's the weakest part of the ceiling. Secondly, you probably have a light in the middle of the room. If the water's going to start leaking, where's it going to start leaking from first? There. Where should you put your grouping of furniture? Next to the wall. It's the strongest place. It's the strongest place.